Welcome to the Reimagine podcast. Each week, give yourself 30 minutes and meet the people working hard to create the future of insurance today.
Hi, this is Paul Tyler, and welcome to another episode of the Reimagine podcast. And Laura, welcome.
It's great to be back, Paul.
Thank you. And we just before the holidays, we actually had a pretty wonderful 5-part series on reimagining retirement. And how many people do you think in total participated in our discussion forums?
Sure. So if we want to be tactical, we had 104 unique participants across the 5-part series, but a lot of those individuals made time to attend more than one.
Yeah, so it was a good event of people who were really making the future of retirement, or what it means to live life on your own terms after you have completed your primary career. So with that, we have great guests. Laura, do you want to do the introduction?
Yeah, happy to, Paul. Today with us, we have Abby Levy. She's co-founder and managing partner of Primetime Partners. Abby has a very interesting background, so I'm not going to dive too far into it. I want her to tell her story, but she spent her career helping businesses and consumer brands grow as an operator, entrepreneur, and advisor. She's noticeably, her talent within the wellness sector and now going into the aging sector is very interesting. And I'm excited to hear more about how she made that move over into the space where she is today.
Abby, welcome. Thank you.
Abby.
Thank you guys for having me. It's a pleasure, and the panel was so much fun. You really put together a great group of people.
Well, thanks. Well, you and the other people made it. It wasn't us. But first of all, tell us about your venture fund and the markets you're focused on, and what you've done up to this point.
Absolutely. So I run a fund called Primetime Partners. We focus solely on the quality of living for older adults. We are an early stage investment fund, meaning we invest in companies that are pre-seed, seed, and Series A, typically writing checks of about $250K to $1 million for our first check-in. And I think the insight, that I developed over time is that there are so many products and services and experiences that need to be designed for older adults, who I'm sure many people who are listening know that population is about to be 25% of our population in the US, more so in China and Japan, control over 60% of the net worth and the assets in the US and the majority of healthcare spend. So it's a very critical audience to make sure that entrepreneurs are designing for. And that's the premise of Primetime, is to support those founders. In terms of, our area, we focus on what older adults care most about. They care about their health, they care about financial security, and they care about having meaningful experiences. So what that means is we invest in digital health and health tech, financial services and fintech, and also in consumer tech and consumer experiences.
Interesting. Well, sort of tell us, Laura kind of indicated, telegraphed a little bit of your kind of interesting journey through a variety of different companies to get to this spot. And we've always got to ask our guests, how did you find your way to something that has to do with insurance or annuities?
Well, I wouldn't say I started my career focused on insurance and annuities. Although, to be honest, my first I worked at McKinsey right out of college, and my first McKinsey area was in financial services. So I did a lot in the banking sector. That said, I think most of my career has been focused on consumer products and media. And so that started I worked at a business called OXO, which makes kitchen tools and gadgets, and I ran product there. And most recently starting Thrive Global with Ariana Huffington and working at SoulCycle, the fitness brand. And a kind of a consistent across all of those experiences was really around consumer insights leading to exceptional products that speak to and connect with consumers. And so really much more of a marketing, BD, and sales focus. So that's kind of my professional background. But at the same time that I was having these different leadership experiences, and particularly spending the last 5 years of my life in wellness, I had a personal situation, which is pretty common for most people who spend time in the aging sector, is that it's typically a story of, a parent or a grandparent's decline that prompted their interest in aging. Mine's a little different. Mine is more about vibrancy, which is my parents are retired and was really trying to understand how could they meaningfully spend their time. And if any of the listeners have done any research on this, you find that actually the majority of products, services, and experience for older adults is really catered to health and decline and where they're going to live. And yet we really haven't filled out all of those meaningful experiences they could have. So that's what brought me to the sector, was really, I would say, trying to solve a personal need and being pretty disappointed in the lack of opportunities for my parents. And so that's why, I created Primetime, which is to make sure that as longevity pushes for many Americans to be 100 plus, and the fact, that 50% of people born after 2007 will live to be 100, we have a society that stops at age 60, and we need to design for those next 30 or 40 years.
So, if you think about products, immediately come to mind, and it's a little cliche, but you have the whole life alert. So you think of an older generation, back when you used to have infomercials on TV. What are some new things that you're seeing, or what are you thinking about? So instead of just reinventing that life alert vibe, what's exciting you these days?
Absolutely. I think getting back to the point that there is this now lifespan, this third chapter of life. What excites me is, first of all, how people can live the way they want to live in terms of aging in place, in terms of social connectivity, and in terms of kind of enriching experiences. And what that means is that, aging in place means, how do we make the home safer? How do we make the home something that is adaptable to, different levels of acuity? How do we have healthcare in the home so that you're not forced out of the home? There's a whole bunch of issues around kind of safety, security, and livability of our homes. A second, so that's kind of around the overall quality of living. But the real area that is also of interest to me is the fact that 50 million Americans are going to run out of money because, I mentioned with longevity, our bank accounts haven't caught up to the longevity statistics. And so we have a real gap here where we have older adults who are almost trying to spend down their assets to get on Medicaid because they don't know how to afford their cost of living and their healthcare. And so that affordability gap it's a challenge that, to be honest, most people aren't talking about. And I think people in the industry are aware of it, but yet I think it's a little bit of a shrug, like, well, what you going to do? And that's where I think innovation and entrepreneurship can really help on that front. And so I'm really interested in products that are focused on alternative sources of income for retirees, things like, leveraging the assets they have, whether it's their mortgage, their life insurance policy, those types of assets. Really interested in alternative employment opportunities for older adults so they can get current income. And of course, thinking about other sources of income, such as crowdfunding, from their if you will have it, a reverse 529, where children are now saving for their parents or allocating assets to their parents in different ways than their parents did for their own college educations. So I think that would be a second area, is really on affordability. The last area is, and you may be surprised to know this, that there are anywhere from 45 to 50 million Americans who are family caregivers, meaning they are responsible or take responsibility for caring for whether it's an older adult or a spouse or a child that needs help. And this is a untrained, unpaid, incredibly stressed out, population that we need to support.
No, I couldn't agree more. And unfortunately, I too have lived through two situations. My father passed away from ALS. Mother had dementia for 10 years. And yeah, Abby, until you've actually dealt with that, you just don't have a comprehension of what the problems are. I think the technology I dealt with helped a lot. It sounds ridiculous, but like online banking, being able to pay for bills, manage remotely, enormous, within the last 10 years. At that point, and because my mother passed away 4 years ago. These in-home sensors, I would have loved to have these and be able to, manage some of this stuff remotely. So I think the whole new world is opening up. But maybe we could sort of talk about pull the thread that you were talking about around how you pay for this and some novel solutions. We talked a little bit about this. You mentioned before that we recorded that you mentioned here crowdfunding for seniors. So is this a GoFundMe page for the golf course?
I would say that the GoFundMe and the crowdsourcing has definitely happened in more acute healthcare needs. So you'll see ways that families are raising to pay for their healthcare costs of their loved one. What I'm seeing is a lot of adult children in their 30s saying, I know my parents are going to now live to, be 90. I understand that 10% or so are going to get Alzheimer's, which is a tremendous out-of-pocket expense. I want to provide them with the care that they've given to me. How can I afford it? And so I think that this is a question of really shifting I wouldn't say responsibility, but there's an increased interest in the children to say, how do I plan for this? Because by the way, I'm going to have to manage it or handle it at some point.
Yes.
So I do think there is the need for creative solutions here. The benefit, obviously, of 529 is the tax advantage. And so one of the challenges I see in the space is, you can ask people to save for a rainy day, but without some sort of incentive, whether it's an employer matching or a tax benefit or some sort of you put in $1 and you get back $1.25. I think it's going to be hard to make that work. But I'm sure there are creative solutions between maybe annuities and life insurance and just all sorts of creative ways to look at the actuarial table to say that. Also, I would like to say those adult children have tremendous influence over their parents' health. How many of folks I've heard was like, I got my mom using Alexa to listen to music. Well, that really helps with her mental health.
Mm-hmm.
And I, have, now the grandkids FaceTime. And I have to say through COVID, the majority of my peer group, we all ended up being tech support for our parents.
Yes.
And so there's a lot of influence on health outcomes from a behavioral health standpoint that I think children could influence. So maybe that could factor into some product design that gives more leverage to adult children contributing to their parents' retirement.
All right. Well, listen, we can partner up afterwards on this, the reverse annuity for
great
take care of their parents. I think that there really is a market for that.
I'd be interested in that just for every reason that you said.
Right. And it's interesting. I will say we've seen a lot of change in dynamics of how seniors are working and how advisors are working with seniors. I think it is opening doors. So, for instance, some of the advisors we've talked to, they're still in the basement waiting for this thing to go over, and they'll go back to doing business the way they've always done. Some though have really kind of latched on and said, "Wait a second, I can do like 15 of these client calls if I do a bunch of Zooms in a series." We've seen others though who've said, "Let's actually bring all the client's family together and have a joint consultation about the problems." And it's so much easier to do it via video conference. And, it starts to address those exact issues. So my wheels are already turning from what I've seen happening here. How do you think, if we just think about the environment we're in, what has changed? I hear what you're saying on all of those themes. I'm saying, but what has pandemic changed? I mean, if you look at your investment thesis, in February last year versus, January this year, or January to January, how has it changed?
So I think a couple of things. One is, remember our target population for our portfolio companies are age 60 plus. And I think what you've seen that audience, first of all, grow in terms of digital savviness, digital penetration and use of smartphones. The majority of people in their 60s and 70s use smartphones. But the comfort using different types of applications in terms of video chat, it has really changed. And you've seen that with telemedicine. The majority of older adults have received care via telemedicine appointment during COVID. And so in that perspective, there's absolutely this notion of changing digital behaviors and comfort levels is one area. I think a second is when it comes to thinking about housing, think about it, the senior living industry has really taken a beating through COVID. And I think people are going to start to think more forward-looking, say, what are my options? And to think about a broader option, one of which might be, how can I age in place? How can I get the, the experience of senior living in my home? And so there's implications on home insurance, on life insurance, on health insurance, on a whole bunch of property related questions when it comes to aging in place. That's a second area that I think is going to be different. And then I think the third piece is really the role that government and community-based organizations play. I mean, historically, but at least over the past 50 years, our government has been not just the safety net for older adults, but it's been the understood provider, if you will, of a variety of services. And I think we're seeing, if you see the changes at CMS, which manages Medicare, Medicaid, what they've made moving quickly since April, I think you're going to continue to see the appetite from all parties, all kind of bigger entities, whether it's payers to government to community-based organizations, to try new things. And I think that's a real opportunity. But so those would be three things I'm seeing post-COVID in terms of kind of digital, the comfort level of digital tools, this real issue around larger entities innovating.
Yeah, interesting. Now, Tyler was in from Retirable was also on. Tell us. I know you're supporting his startup. What do you find most interesting in what his business is doing?
Yeah, so we've been around for 6 months. We've made 9 investments, 2 of which are in fintech, and Retirable is one of them. Retirable is a digital financial planning tool for pre-retirees who do not have a retirement plan. And the insight there is that unless you have enough assets under management to be interesting to a larger financial planner, you are underbanked, if you will, or under-advised. And so what they've done is they've done a real great job in building an audience that is looking for answers. This population wants to know, how does Medicare work? When do I get Medicare? Which do I want a supplemental policy? When do I take Social Security, which has tremendous financial impact on moderate to low income Americans? Lots of questions. What should I do with my home? Should I keep it? Should I sell it? How do I, et cetera, et cetera. So what they've done is they've done a combination of building out a digital, I'd say, decision path to help people make those decisions, but also access via video to the same way there's telehealth, there's kind of now digital or kind of Zoom financial advisory, which is what you mentioned, that right. is kind of where a lot of the industry has moved for now.
So tell us more. Okay. So 9.
Yeah. Yeah. So 9. So that's an area where I think we see the opportunity for Retirable to continue to build out new products or to partner with existing providers of products to really to basically offer them and to share the pros and cons with their audience. And it's a great team. They came from Policy Genius. It's a really qualified team. A second investment we've made right now is Canada only. So they will be coming to the US, but it's a business called Fraction Real Estate. And it's a super exciting take on home equity. And what they are doing is really constructed terms of a fractional appreciation mortgage, if you will, a FAM, that takes a portion of the equity in exchange for cash now. And then what they're able to do is to share in the upside of if the property value goes up, they share in that with the owner. And if there's a floor so that the owner doesn't get hurt if the property value goes down. The interest rates are much more accessible and not as usurious as some other products known as typically reverse mortgages. And so it's really, I think the team has designed a product that is really solely focused on older adults, because older adults, when they go to try to refinance their homes, the problem with a lot of products is if you don't have current income, you can't get good terms. So they're really trying to solve for that audience. They're right now just launched in British Columbia in Canada, and they will be coming to the US.
Oh, so, yeah, that's fascinating, because that is a market that's ripe for disruption. As you say, I think homes are such a powerful tool to tap in retirement, but I know the fees have come down quite a bit on reverse mortgages from where they were 10 years ago, but this sounds very interesting. So what else?
What else? We're doing a lot around social isolation for older adults, and then the different models around kind of care delivery in the existing portfolio. And then there's also, listen, I'm a woman in my mid-40s. You got to put a menopause business in there. So we have an investment in a consumer products company that's launching an entire line of menopause-related, consumer products. But as I look to kind of where we want to be spending time, we are definitely looking for, and not even looking for, we're seeing a lot of businesses being started that are early stage in life settlement, and new takes on that product, similar to the home equity types of products. People are looking at what other assets do you have that can be monetized. We're looking at a lot of, I would say, elder care insurance. So all the types of supplemental insurance that you can think of. Right now, supplemental insurance, health insurance is largely focused on hospitalization or kind of acute, kind of urgent care type situations. Hey, let us help you deal with this, if you have an emergency and a spike in your costs, versus elder care, which is kind of one of those oftentimes a slow, steady burn. The average family caregiver spends $7,000 a month out of pocket on their loved one. And so there's some elder care insurance startups that have popped up in that space. And then I think the last area, again, that's kind of within this fintech world that we've been looking at is all these issues around how do you optimize how do you think about financial bill pay and management? And so as an older adult ages, fraud is an issue, delinquency is an issue. And so how do you think about, not even just in cases of dementia, but just in general, how do you manage the complicated financial processing and administration that happens, that needs to happen every year, but may or may not. I guess there's one other area I forgot to mention, estates. So there's been a bunch of startups that are all around, I guess I would say, death planning. And, those are ones where we've seen some really interesting ones saying, the financial services industry, it's a huge pain point, because if you're work as a banker and you have a account open on, for your client who passes away, that administrative burden, the fiduciary burden of having to deal with the kind of assets probate, division of assets, how can we solve this for the financial services industry?
It's fascinating. It sounds like there's
that is fascinating, and actually, we should connect you with Upward Hartford too. Do you know? Do you know Upward Labs?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, they built a great program. In fact, we have some of the startups that have come out of that program in our incubator in Hartford as well. So, very interesting space. I think our average age at our insurance company, I think, of a customer is like 68, who are buying our products. So it's a lot of these issues are front and center with our customer base as well. Forget about the startups, but this is really interesting. Listen, Abby, thanks so much for giving us time today. For any entrepreneurs who want to get their products or their business in front of you, what would be the best way to contact you or your company?
Great. It's really simple. It's Abby, ABBY, at primetimepartners.com, or go to primetimepartners.com and you can find us there. But we're really excited to encourage more folks with everything from ideas to full-blown businesses to continue to create for older adults. And come on in, the water's warm.
Laura, what else?
It would be a shame not to ask the question based on your breadth of background and experience. If you had one piece of advice for a founder out there right now listening, what would it be? It
would be to test and learn. Don't spend too long analyzing on the side. Get an idea to life and bring it in front of some people. And I think that you'll see that there's a huge audience. This is a huge audience. It's very heterogeneous, and there will be a market. and a consumer or an end user for most of what is designed for them. So get in front of the consumer and stay really close to them.
That's great.
Hey, listen,
Thank you.
thank you. Thanks so much for your time, Abby.
Great, guys. Great to be here.
We want to especially thank today's sponsors, Launch and Symetra.
Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed the show, please rate and recommend us on iTunes, Stitcher, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also get more great information about this company and other great startups at imagine.nsre.com.